Midnight in rural Arkansas. An 8-pound socket slips off a ratchet and falls 80 feet through darkness. It bounces once off a steel thrust mount, then punches through the skin of a Titan II missile. Inside that missile sits a 9-megaton nuclear warhead. It was 600 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. If every bomb dropped in World War II was a single grain of sand, this warhead would be a 5-pound bag. The year is 1980. In 9 hours, the missile will explode. One person will die, and America will begin abandoning the most expensive defense system ever built. Between 1958 and 1967, the United States built over 1,200 intercontinental ballistic missile silos. They were buried beneath farmland across the Great Plains, hidden in plain sight. The logic was simple: mutually assured destruction. If the Soviets launched a nuclear-first strike, enough American missiles had to survive to retaliate. Total annihilation on both sides. Peace through the promise of ending civilization. The silos cost billions of dollars. The Army Corps of Engineers moved 26 million cubic yards of earth. They poured 3 million cubic yards of concrete and used 764,000 tons of steel. 21,000 construction workers worked around the clock, building underground launch facilities. 3 generations of missiles went into these silos. First came Atlas, which used liquid oxygen and kerosene fuel. It had to be fueled before launch, which took precious minutes. Then came Titan I, slightly better, but still requiring 15 minutes from order to liftoff. The Titan II changed everything. 147 feet deep, 55 feet in diameter, walls 8 feet thick at the top. A 740-ton door that opened in 17 seconds. Inside, a missile that weighed 330,000 pounds fully fueled. But the real innovation was the fuel itself. Hypergolic propellants, Aerozine 50 and nitrogen tetroxide. They ignited on contact with each other. No fueling procedures required. The missile could sit ready for years. Launch time 58 seconds from turning the keys to the missile clearing the silo. That included the massive door sliding open. 58 seconds from a presidential order to a weapon leaving American soil on its way to destroy a city halfway around the world. 54 Titan II missiles were built. 18 in Arkansas, 18 in Kansas, 18 in Arizona. Each topped with a W-53 warhead, 9 megatons. The most powerful nuclear weapon ever mounted on an American ICBM. And beneath the Great Plains, 1,000 Minuteman missiles joined them. Solid fuel, even faster, even more reliable. By the mid-1960s, America had buried an arsenal capable of destroying the world several times over. September 18, 1980, Launch Complex 3747, just north of Damascus, Arkansas. A propellant transfer system team arrived to conduct routine maintenance. Elite specialists, they had done this hundreds of times. They were checking the pressure on the oxidizer tank. Standard procedure, Airman David Powell descended into the silo with his tools. He had brought a heavy 3-foot ratchet, but he had forgotten the torque wrench. He did not have the proper extension. He was already below ground in his protective suit. Going back up would mean time and paperwork. He decided to proceed. The socket was not properly secured. It slipped. 8 pounds of hardened steel dropped through the darkness. 80 feet down, it struck the first stage fuel tank. The tank was pressurized. The puncture was small, but it was enough. Aerozine 50 began leaking into the silo. The missile combat crew evacuated immediately. Emergency protocols were activated. Response teams arrived from Little Rock Air Force Base. The situation was serious, but manageable. They monitored the leak, vented the toxic fumes, and waited for specialists to assess the damage. For 9 hours, they monitored and vented. The fuel cloud grew slowly. Visibility inside the silo dropped to 0. Vapor detectors screamed warnings. The senior mission commander made the call. 2 men would enter the complex, turn on an exhaust fan to clear the vapors. Senior Airman David Livingston and Staff Sergeant Jeff Kennedy volunteered. They descended through the blast doors. When they opened the door to the silo itself, the concentration of fuel was catastrophic. The vapors found an ignition source, probably a pump, maybe an electrical arc. At approximately 3 a.m., the fuel ignited. The explosion was catastrophic. It blew the 740-ton silo door 200 meters into the air. 20-ton sections of the flame deflector were thrown 500 meters. The blast could be felt for miles. The entire launch complex ceased to exist. Senior Airman David Livingston was pulled from the rubble. He would succumb to his injuries in a hospital hours later. 21 others were injured. Kennedy survived, though he struggled with respiratory damage for the rest of his life. The 9-megaton warhead was ejected from the silo. It traveled through the air and landed in a ditch about 600 feet away. For several hours, nobody knew if the warhead would detonate. Governor Bill Clinton held emergency briefings. President Jimmy Carter appeared on television to reassure the nation. But the real answer came from the weapon's design. The W-53 had 1-point safety. For a nuclear detonation to occur, the high explosives surrounding the uranium core must implode in perfect symmetry, simultaneously, from all directions. The Damascus explosion was asymmetrical, external, chaotic. It could not trigger the precise sequence required for a nuclear chain reaction. The warhead was recovered intact. No radiation leaked. The failsafes had worked, but the message was clear. The weapon designed to protect Arkansas had nearly destroyed it. On September 24, 1981, President Ronald Reagan announced the retirement of the entire Titan II program. All 54 missiles, every silo. The accidents were too frequent, the maintenance too dangerous, the liquid fuel too volatile. Between 1975 and 1979 alone, there were 125 accidents at Titan sites. In 1965, a fire during silo modification work near Searcy, Arkansas, killed 53 people, all civilian contractors. It was the worst non-combat missile accident in American history. By 1987, every Titan II was gone. The Minuteman II missiles followed in the 1990s. The START I treaty between George H.W. Bush and Mikhail Gorbachev mandated reductions. Missiles were removed and silos were imploded to a depth of 25 feet, then filled with gravel and concrete. The last silo was destroyed in December 1997. Environmental contamination remains. Trichloroethylene, a solvent used to clean the missiles, leached into groundwater near hundreds of sites. PCBs from waterproofing materials contaminated soil and water. Diesel from underground storage tanks also leached out. Decades later, rural communities still deal with contaminated wells and restricted land use. Of 1,200 silos that were built, only 400 remain active today. All are Minuteman III missiles. They are all at 3 bases: Malmstrom in Montana, Minot in North Dakota, and F.E. Warren in Wyoming. The rest are private property, have been filled in, or are preserved as museums. The Titan Missile Museum in Arizona is the only intact Titan II site open to the public. Visitors can descend into the Launch Control Center and see exactly what it looked like on alert. Everything else is gone. 400 Minuteman III missiles are on alert right now, this minute. They entered service in 1970. They are over 50 years old. The Air Force rebuilt them in 2015 for $7 billion, but they are still sitting in silos designed before most of their operators were born. The missileers today are often 22-year-old lieutenants. They descend into capsules their grandparents' generation built. Until 2019, they used 8-inch floppy disks to coordinate launch sequences. The most powerful weapons in history were essentially running on the same technology as a word processor from the 1980s. The replacement system, SACCS, now uses highly secure solid-state digital storage. Basically, they finally upgraded to something resembling a modern thumb drive. A replacement is coming. The Sentinel program. 400 new missiles, same silos, same mission, same doctrine of mutually assured destruction. The program has triggered a Nunn-McCurdy breach. That is legal terminology for a massive cost overrun. The cost per missile has jumped 81% above the initial estimate. Billions over budget, facing significant delays. Even now, we cannot seem to break free. But the abandoned silos scattered across the heartland tell a different story. David Powell dropped a socket. 53 civilian contractors died in a construction fire. Launch complexes exploded, missiles leaked. The weapons meant to protect us became as dangerous to their operators as to any enemy. Damascus did not cause a nuclear detonation. The fail-safes worked, but it revealed how fragile the entire system was, and how many times we got lucky. Most Americans do not think about the silos anymore. They are invisible, buried beneath farmland in states most people never visit. The Cold War ended 30 years ago, but 400 missiles are still down there, still ready, still waiting for an order that might come with 58 seconds notice. The silos were built to prevent nuclear war. Instead, they became one of the most dangerous things America ever created, and we still cannot let them go. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more abandonment documentaries from across America.